Right now, at this very moment, thousands of immigrants and travelers across the United States are making a passport renewal error that is causing them to lose appointments, spend extra money, disrupt travel plans, and in some cases generating difficulties for their ongoing immigration cases that they did not expect. They are renewing their passports without reviewing one essential item first. And the worst part is that most of them do not even realize an error has occurred until they are standing at an airport check-in counter or sitting in front of a consular officer or waiting at a CBP primary inspection booth and something does not match. I am Byron, and today on Immigration Zone, we are going to talk about exactly what that essential review is, why it matters more in 2026 than it ever has before, and what you need to do before you submit any passport renewal application, regardless of which country issued your passport or how straightforward your situation seems on the surface. This is the kind of information that saves you from an error that is completely preventable and yet happens to thousands of people every single month. Let me start by telling you what most people think passport renewal is, because that assumption is exactly where the problem begins. Most people think passport renewal is simple. Your passport is expiring. You fill out the renewal form. You submit your photos. You pay the fee. You get a new passport. And for many people in many situations, that is more or less accurate. But here is what those people are not thinking about. They are not thinking about what that new passport means for every other document in their immigration file. They are not thinking about what happens to their visa stamps. They are not thinking about what happens to their travel history. They are not thinking about what happens to their I-94 record. They are not thinking about whether their name in the new passport matches their name on their green card, their EAD, their pending petition, or their naturalization application. And they are not thinking about whether renewing their passport through their home country consulate right now at this specific moment in their immigration journey could create a difficulty they did not anticipate. The first and most important thing you need to review before you renew your passport is whether your name in the renewal application exactly matches your name across all of your active immigration documents. This sounds like it should be obvious, but name differences are one of the most common and most damaging issues that immigration attorneys see when clients come to them with problems caused by a passport renewal they did not think through. Here is how it typically happens. You were born in a country where your name has a particular spelling or structure. When you came to the United States and applied for your first visa or your first immigration benefit, your name was entered into the system in a specific way. Over the years, different documents may have captured your name slightly differently. Your passport might have your full legal name, including a middle name. Your green card might have only your first and last name. Your I-140 petition might have your name with a hyphen that your passport does not include. Your EAD might have a slightly different transliteration of a name that was originally in a non-Latin script. None of these differences may have caused a visible problem yet. But when you renew your passport and the new passport comes back with a name that is different from what appears on your other immigration documents, even by one letter, even by the addition or removal of a middle name, that difference becomes a live issue every single time you travel, every single time you file a new immigration application, and every single time a USCIS officer or CBP officer pulls up your record and compares what they see on your passport to what they see in their system. And in 2026, with CBP's expanded biometric verification systems and USCIS's push toward full digital integration that I covered in a recent Immigration Zone video, those differences are being caught faster and flagged more consistently than they ever were in the paper era. The second thing you need to review before you renew your passport is whether you have any valid visa stamps in your current passport that you are going to need after the renewal. This is something that genuinely surprises people because the assumption is that when you get a new passport, your old visa stamps are no longer valid. That assumption is wrong. A valid visa stamp in an expired passport remains valid as long as the visa itself has not expired, and as long as you travel with both your old passport containing the valid stamp and your new passport. But here is where people make mistakes. They renew their passport. They assume the old visa is gone and they apply for a new visa when they did not need to. That costs them time and money, and in some cases requires a consular appointment that could have been avoided entirely. Or they renew their passport. They do not realize they need to carry the old one. They leave it at home and they arrive at a port of entry without the document that contains the valid visa stamp that CBP needs to see. That creates a problem at the border that is completely avoidable. The third thing you need to review before you renew your passport is the status of any pending immigration applications you have with USCIS, and whether renewing your passport right now could affect those applications. This is the review that most people never even think about, and it is the one that can have the most serious consequences. If you have a pending I-485 adjustment of status application, USCIS has your current passport information on file as part of that application. If you renew your passport and your new passport has a different number, a different expiration date, or any different biographical information, you may need to notify USCIS of that change. Failing to update USCIS with your new passport information can create differences in your file that slow down your case, trigger requests for additional evidence, or cause confusion at your adjustment of status interview when the officer compares the passport in front of them to the passport information in your file. Now, let me walk you through the additional reviews that apply to specific categories of travelers and applicants. Because the passport renewal errors that hurt people most are often the ones that are specific to their particular immigration situation rather than general errors that apply to everyone. And I want to make sure that every person watching Immigration Zone today walks away knowing exactly which reviews apply to their specific circumstances so that nothing falls through the cracks. If you are a green card holder, the most important thing you need to review before renewing your passport is whether the biographical information in your renewal application is going to match the biographical information on your green card exactly. Your green card was issued based on the information you provided at the time of your adjustment of status or your consular processing. Your name, your date of birth, and your country of birth, as they appear on your green card, are the official record that USCIS has for you. If your new passport comes back with a date of birth that is formatted differently, a name that is spelled differently, or a place of birth that is described differently than what appears on your green card, you now have a document difference that will surface every single time you use both documents together. And as a green card holder, you use both documents together every time you travel internationally because you need both your passport and your green card to re-enter the United States. CBP officers at ports of entry are comparing those two documents in real time, and any difference between them is going to generate questions that slow you down and in some cases generate referrals to secondary inspection that could have been completely avoided. Green card holders also need to review something else before renewing their passport, and that is the expiration date on their green card relative to their travel plans. I covered the expired green card issue in detail in a recent Immigration Zone video, but the connection to passport renewal is something I want to address specifically here. If your green card is expiring around the same time your passport is expiring, you need to think carefully about the sequence in which you renew these documents. Renewing your passport first and then traveling internationally while your green card renewal is pending creates a situation where you have a brand new passport with no travel history and an expired or near expired green card. That combination can raise questions at the border about the consistency of your travel record and your current status. The safest approach is to address your green card renewal first or simultaneously, and to make sure that your I-90 receipt notice is in order before you book any international travel. If you are in the process of applying for naturalization, there is a specific passport renewal consideration that most people completely overlook, and it has caused some applicants significant difficulties in their naturalization cases. When you file your N-400 naturalization application, USCIS will schedule you for a biometrics appointment and eventually a naturalization interview. At that interview, the officer will review your identity documents, including your passport. If you renew your passport between the time you file your N-400 and the time you attend your naturalization interview, the passport you present at the interview will be different from the passport information captured at your biometrics appointment. That is not automatically a problem, but it does require you to bring both your old and new passports to the interview and to be prepared to explain the change. More importantly, if your new passport has any different biographical information than your old one, the officer will need to reconcile that difference with the information in your naturalization file. Having a clear explanation and documentation ready for that conversation is much better than being surprised by it at the interview table. Now, let me talk about children's passports, because this is an area where parents frequently make errors that create problems for their children's immigration cases or travel documents. Children's passports in many countries expire more frequently than adult passports, often every 5 years rather than every 10. And parents who are managing their own immigration cases while also managing their children's immigration status sometimes allow their children's passports to expire without realizing the downstream consequences. If your child is a derivative beneficiary on your immigration petition, meaning they are included in your green card case or your visa petition as a dependent, their passport information is part of the immigration record. An expired passport for a derivative beneficiary can create complications at a consular interview or at the point of admission when the entire family is processing together. Renewing your child's passport well before it expires and making sure the biographical information matches what was submitted in the original petition is something that should be on every parent's checklist. Consider what happened to a family from Pakistan who were in the final stages of their green card process through consular processing. The mother renewed her passport 6 months before their immigrant visa interview without checking whether her new passport name matched her approved I-140 petition. Her new passport reflected a slight change in the transliteration of her name that the Pakistani Passport Authority had updated in their system. At the consular interview, the officer identified the difference between the name on the approved petition and the name on the new passport. The interview was suspended. The family had to return home and wait while additional administrative processing was completed to reconcile the name difference. What should have been a straightforward interview that ended with immigrant visa approval turned into a 4-month delay that disrupted the entire family's relocation plans, their children's school enrollment, and the father's employment start date in the United States. A 10-minute review before the passport renewal was submitted would have caught the issue before it became a problem. The fourth critical review before passport renewal that applies to almost everyone is whether your country of birth, as it will appear in your new passport, matches your country of birth as it appears in your existing immigration documents. This matters because country of birth is not always as straightforward as it sounds. If you were born in a country that has since changed its name, been divided into multiple countries, or been absorbed into another country, different documents issued at different times may reflect different country of birth entries. And in the employment-based green card system, your country of birth as recorded in your immigration file determines your visa backlog category. If your new passport lists a different country of birth than what is in your USCIS file, that difference needs to be addressed proactively before it creates confusion in your case, or before it is discovered at a point where it is much harder to explain. Now, let me give you the complete action checklist that every person watching Immigration Zone should go through before submitting any passport renewal application, because everything I have covered in this video comes down to preparation. And the good news is that every single one of these reviews takes minutes, not hours, and every single one of them is completely free to do before you commit to anything. Check number 1. Compare the name on your renewal application to the name on every active immigration document you currently hold. your green card, your EAD, your visa stamps, your I-94 record, your pending petition receipt notices, your naturalization application if you have one filed. If there is any difference in spelling, hyphenation, middle name inclusion or exclusion, or transliteration between any of these documents and what your new passport will reflect, you need to address that difference before you submit your renewal and before you travel. Check number 2. Pull up your I-94 record right now at i94.cbp.hs.gov and verify that your most recent entry and exit information is accurate and that your authorized period of stay is correctly reflected. If there is anything in your I-94 record that does not look right, consult with an immigration attorney before you renew your passport, because a passport renewal does not fix an I-94 difference, and in some cases it can make an existing difference more visible. Check number 3. If you have valid visa stamps in your current passport, confirm that those stamps are still within their validity period and make a plan to travel with both your old and new passport until those stamps expire or until you obtain new visa stamps in your new passport. Do not assume that a valid visa stamp disappears when you get a new passport. It does not, but you have to carry both documents for it to work. Check number 4. If you have any pending USCIS applications, review whether your passport renewal requires you to notify USCIS of a change in your biographical information. For most pending applications, there is a process for updating your record, and doing that proactively is always better than having an officer discover the difference during adjudication or at an interview. Think about what happened to a Nigerian-born software developer who was 2 months away from his naturalization oath ceremony when he renewed his passport. His new passport reflected a middle name that had never appeared on any of his prior immigration documents because the Nigerian Passport Authority had updated their records. At his oath ceremony check-in, the name difference flagged in the system. His oath was postponed. He had to file additional documentation with USCIS to reconcile the name difference before he could reschedule. A citizenship ceremony he had waited years for was delayed by 3 months over a name and a passport that he had renewed without checking his immigration file first. Passport renewal feels like a routine administrative task, and for many people in straightforward situations, it genuinely is. But for immigrants who have active cases, pending applications, valid visa stamps, green cards, or naturalization applications in progress, passport renewal is a step that sits inside a larger immigration picture. And when you take that step without looking at the full picture first, small oversights become large complications. So before you renew your passport, pause. Review your name consistency across all documents. Review your I-94 record. Review your valid visa stamps. Review your pending applications. And if anything looks complicated or unclear, spend 30 minutes with an immigration attorney before you spend months dealing with the consequences of a difference you could have caught today. If this video helped you avoid a mistake that thousands of people make every single month, hit that like button right now, because it helps Immigration Zone reach more people who need this information before they need it, not after. Tell us in the comments whether you have ever had a passport renewal complication or if you have a question about your own specific situation, because your experience might save someone else from making the same mistake. And if you are not yet subscribed to Immigration Zone, subscribe right now and turn on notifications, because this is exactly the kind of practical, specific, and genuinely useful immigration information we bring you every single day. I am Byron, and I will see you in the next